Hey guys, welcome back to our Po2 podcast. I'm Jay,
And I'm Amber.
and today we'll be reviewing episode 6 of season 3 entitled Private Enemy Number 1.
Yeah. This episode was written by Aziza Abba Butane, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. If I'm pronouncing that wrong, I do apologize. The other person that wrote this episode was Nikki Renner. Now, she is actually one of the showrunners for season 4. She's written a few episodes before this one. I'm not sure how many episodes of these she's written. I think this might be her second or a third episode. I could be wrong.
Okay, so there's a lot of decent subplots in this episode, and I guess it's one of those episodes where it's really evenly divided up. I actually appreciate that. I appreciated more on the second viewing than my initial viewing because honestly, the first time I saw this earlier this year, I was really disappointed. But I do have to
Why were you disappointed?
uh because the episode left me really disappointed over the monster of the week thing, and I can get into that a little later. But I do want to give them credit about how they did give everyone something to do, and they really paired up the characters in ways that made sense for the episode and as well as serving the actors.
Right.
We can start off with Abby.
Yeah. Good old Abigail. She's up to mischief as usual. She's back in her kind of evil, I'm a bitch type thing, which I don't know about you, but this is what I love about Abigail. And I'm not saying that I love Abigail because she's like my least favorite character of all of them. Well, not completely, but she's one of my least favorite characters. But what I like about Abigail is when she's being a bitch, she's good at it. She is good at being a bitch. So I really appreciated that about her. And I wasn't a fan of what they've done with the character. She kind of switches between being, oh, save me, to this horrible, mean, this demon overlord, which we'll get more into as the episode goes on. But it starts off with Abigail, and there's some demons arguing in her house, her apartment, whatever you want to call it. And she can't be bothered with it. So she puts her hand out and sends them flying out of her apartment and basically down into,
The streets and causes a car accident.
and then she just shuts the door and she just walks off like that. It's just a normal thing to do.
It's so camp.
Yeah, it's kind of camp. I think it was more sort of just her being her, really. She just don't care. It doesn't matter, how many innocents she may have accidentally caused injury to in the process of doing that. She just did it. So,
Yeah, not to mention she's potentially exposing the magical community by
exactly.
doing that.
Two people just fell out of an apartment building. Don't they want to know who would do it? See, this is why I'm comparing it to the original Charmed. If that happened in the original Charmed, especially in the early days, they would follow that up.
Yep.
I remember there was an episode where in season 1 where Matthew Tate uses Prue's powers to smash the glass, and then he jumps down from the Bucklands, which is this multi-story building. And Andy and Daryl, they look into that, and there's an investigation. Why is this man falling from the sky? But that's not something that they looked into.
Later on in that opening scene, we see Abby be all badass, but then she goes to bed and we see her dragged off the bed while she's sleeping, like something out of Paranormal Activity.
Yeah, and she's being dragged along the floor and she screams, and then we get the opening title.
Abby in season 2 got a lot of criticism because way too many storylines revolved around her. But I do like when she ropes in an actual Charmed one. So in this episode, even though it starts off with Abby, it's really a Mel storyline, which I like because it's not all about Abby. So yeah, Abby has screen time. Abby gets her little subplot, but also Mel is part of that.
Right.
So what happens with Mel is that we see her meet with her girlfriend Ruby at the Safe Space Cafe. We get to see a little of their relationship because obviously with the magical COVID allergy, they can't touch. Mel gets really jealous of Ruby because there's this girl Bella that's bringing her muffins and stuff. And Mel's super jealous, and that causes a little bit of friction, and that comes into play later in the episode. What happens is Abby is in the background the whole time, waits for Mel to be alone, gives her a call, and tells her to turn around. And there's Abby, like, I need your help.
Oh my God. Now, this scene, there's a line that Mel delivers in this scene that I found so cringe. And it's when Abby goes over to, and they go over to the corner to talk in quiet. And I'm using, apostrophes or air quotes for that. Mel goes, "Oh, you've taken over your demon overlord status." The way she said demon overlord status or something like that, it was so cringe to me. I hated the way she delivered the line.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like natural at all. It was like, who would say it like that? Didn't you think she said it in a weird way?
She did say it in a weird way, but it was also a really weird line.
It
And
was a really weird line.
I think an actor's job is to, no matter how badly a line is given or written, they should be able to work with it. And I can see why they give so much more material to Abby because Abby is definitely a stronger actress. I'm not trying to shade Melanie Diaz, but there's some there's some things that she does well, but she's not the best at line delivery. She's good at reacting, she's good at acting angry, she's good at being the character, but she's not the best at delivering lines. And that's been pretty evident since the pilot. No hate to her, but I do think the writers at this point they should write to their actors' strengths.
So Abigail tells Mel that she needs help. She's being attacked.
She's saying that it's been going on for a bit and they're getting more violent as it progresses. Oh, another thing that I wanted to say real quick is that Abby says she's been keeping away the demons from the charm ones this whole time. And that reminded me of the alliance that Crowley had with the Winchesters on Supernatural. They butted heads because, demon and they're demon monster hunters or whatever. But they get to a point where he's like, well, you do your thing and I'll make sure my bad guys stay out of your way. That's kind of what Abby's doing. So when she said that, it reminded me a lot of Supernatural.
Yeah, and folks, if you haven't realised yet, Jay loves his supernatural. He's a bit of a supernatural buff. You might get a lot of that in the show. He might bring that up every now and then.
Actually, if you guys want us to review the witchy episodes of Supernatural, let us know in the comments because I would be down for that.
Mm.
So Abby has Mel come to her apartment to watch her sleep via a scrying glass or scrying mirror. And eventually Mel sees Abby's bed go on fire while she's sleeping. She's concerned for her, so she asks her to go back to the Charmed One's house. And then what comes from that is, a really shady moment from Abby. Ruby comes in to check on Mel, and Abby flirtatiously comes up to the door and acts like she's there as a booty call or something, making Ruby jealous and causing drama for Mel. It's a funny thing they do with her character because she's obviously in need, but she's still being a little snake and biting the hand that's helping her.
That's the way she is, though. That's the way
Mhm.
Abby's always been.
Yeah.
It's like they want us to feel sorry for her and they want us to relate to her in one way, but in the other way, she's been a total whatever. I know it's about having the characters having dimension and the characters being a certain way, but if you look at a show, I don't know, so for example, say Buffy, and this is just totally a different show, but show like Buffy, you take a character like Tara, and she's one way the whole show.
Mhm.
She's this nice character, she's lovable, she is someone there for Willow. And then you flip that round and you say the next week, oh, she's being this horrible person, killing innocents, she's doing this, that, and the other. And then the week after, she's back to be, it's like they do that with Abigail a lot, depending on who is writing the episode. And that's what I don't like.
You like consistency.
Yeah, I do. And I think the reboot does struggle with its consistency a lot.
I do think they have been a little consistent though with Abby's need to be flirtatious and, her demeanor, because even earlier in the episode when she's asking Mel to watch over her, she's like being all filthy and she wants Mel in the room with her while she sleeps. And she doesn't want Mel to vanquish it. She wants Mel to capture it so she can watch it while she tortures it slowly. Like she's making it all sexual. It's like, you
Mm,
know.
well, that's Abby for you.
So that element of her character I think, is consistent. But I do agree with you that the ebbs and flows of the characters really varies on what the writers want. They could make a character do a 180 episode to episode, and it's just very inconsistent.
And we're just supposed to, as audience members, we're just supposed to go along with it and then not complain about it later on, which is a rant that some of us had last season. And if you've seen my Twitter rants, Geeky Girl Amber, I was going in on them. I was not happy about season 2 at all. And that was one of the reasons. What we got back was, oh, just accept it type thing, which it is what it is. And that's Abigail for you.
For Abby and Mel, it wraps up with them finding out that Abby's actually a demon. We'll talk about that more when we go into the ending of the episode. So, leaving Abby on the back burner for now, obviously, Abby created tension between Mel and Ruby, and they have a fight. They break up, and ultimately, they do get back together once they talk about their feelings. What do you think about their relationship?
Well, the thing about Mel and Ruby is that, and this is no shade at all directed to the actors, but I don't think the characters have a lot of chemistry. I've always felt that Mel and Nico in season 1, Mel and Jada in season 1, even Mel and Kat in season 2 had better chemistry than Ruby. But on the flip side, this episode gave their relationship some dimension.
Yeah.
I felt like we got to see more than just them saying, oh, hi, and all this. I felt like there was some layers to the relationship.
You know what? I'm getting a kind of Tara vibe from Ruby. Do you see that?
Yeah, I can
I
kind of see
I
that.
don't know if that's what they're going for, but I do get like a Willow and Tara vibe from them. Ruby just seems very pure and innocent and just like a really good person. Whereas we know Mel has, or at least they try to portray Mel as having these anger problems and her problems with authority and trying to fix society, all of that bubbling underneath. Whereas Ruby seems to be very like gentle, and that does remind me a little bit of Willow and Tara. So that's probably just the Buffy fan in me trying to make a
Yeah.
connection there, but I could be wrong. So yeah, they eventually make up. They talk it out. They make up. Their little arc ends on a good note for that episode.
I just thought that the scene that they had outside when they were, having the cupcakes and eating the cupcakes or muffins, whatever they are, muffins. I thought that scene was really sweet. There was sort of intimacy there without them actually touching because of the allergy.
Yeah.
Mel can't touch Ruby. And I just thought it was nice.
Moving on to the main storyline for this episode, the Charmed Ones go up against another adversary from the Tomb of Chaos. So they're watching on social media because we see Maggie, of course. Maggie's keeping up with the social media, checking out any magical or demonic activity. And she sees that there is this man named Elliot who is keeping a blog or a podcast or something online with social media about
He has a website about his alien hunting.
Yeah, and he's an alien conspiracy theorist. He thinks that the portal rips in the skies is aliens. And what's funny, and I'm sure a lot of people have figured that out, but his name is Elliot. That's the name of the boy from E.T. So I just thought that was a clever little nod from the writers.
I hadn't even realized that. That's the first time that I'm hearing that. Sorry.
Oh, yep. Elliot is the kid from E.T. So I had a little chuckle when they made a point to say his name when they were talking about the alien stuff. But anyway, the Charmed Ones think that he must be magical because he seems to be near when these portals appear. So Macy and Harry team up to follow up on that lead. As we mentioned, Mel was busy with Abby, and then Maggie's busy with her own thing. And Macy and Harry go to Nevada, which, quote unquote, is the land of the tinfoil hats. I thought that was a funny line.
I don't know how people in Nevada felt about that, though.
Yeah, it's just funny because Madeline is I just thought the way she delivered that was funny.
So we get to see them at Elliot's house and things kind of kick off. He's very protective of this orb and he
Mhm.
delivers this line that don't touch my orb or no one should touch a man's orb or something. And I thought that was kind of funny because it kind of reminded me of what Prue said to Leo in the original challenge. It's like nice orbs. It just kind of brought me back to that. I feel like they could have done that. They could have done like some kind of nod to that. That would have been funny, but I guess that went
Yeah.
over the writers' heads.
It also could be a reference to, again, Buffy season 6 with Warren. He uses these magical orbs to one up Buffy in strength to be as strong as Buffy, and she kicks his ass in the end by smashing his orbs.
Yeah. So Macy creates a distraction with her telekinesis. She knocks some pans over
Mhm.
and they take the orb and they run away with it. Elliot goes berserk, basically.
One thing that should be mentioned is, again, from last episode, we see that Harry is struggling with the comments people are making that he's too old and all that. So Elliot asks them if they're married. They say no. And Elliot says, oh, Harry's too old for her anyway.
Mm,
Such a stupid line. It's so ham fisted. I just don't. Who talks like that?
I know. And they also put in the back crack scene where Harry bent over in the command center. Before they went to see Elliot, there was a scene where Harry dropped, I think he dropped a pen or something. Yeah, he threw a pen on the table and it fell off the table and he went over to pick it up and his back cracked. It
Oh,
made a noise
God.
and then he flashed back to the episode prior with Jordan and Harry talking over, the whole I'm too old for you type thing.
Yeah.
Well, not Harry and Jordan, but Harry and Macy.
Wow. So they get back to the command center, and Macy deduces that the orb has a symbol and must be connected to the monsters. And, obviously it is. She leaves Harry alone so she can deal with her safe space issues. From last episode, Swan basically told her she needed to step up. So off screen, Macy goes and deals with that. And while she's gone, we see that the orb starts affecting Harry.
And he goes into some kind of
Manic mode.
weird manic investigator mode where he's just thinking big and looking into everything and he's trying to figure out what this is all connected to. He's got this big grandiose, whatever is going on with him, basically.
Yep. Macy comes back and finds that he is compulsively researching patterns and he's obsessed with the orb, saying it's like a beautiful kaleidoscope. Being concerned about that, she goes back to check on Elliot and finds out that he's also become crazy, and not just that, but blind. And Elliot says that when he found the orb, he thought it was alien technology, but then the orb apparently it lets people see patterns and formulas to translate anything. It opens your eyes and it makes you understand things on a very technical mathematical level, and you become so obsessed with that, and it actually takes your vision, your literal vision. And if for whatever reason, if the orb is taken away, then you start getting a withdrawal symptoms and then you die. So Macy
Mm.
freaks out, goes back to Harry because
Well,
Elliot
before
literally,
she goes back to Harry, he attacks her, doesn't he?
yeah.
He knocks her over and she does her X-Men Wonder Blue Beam thing, which I absolutely hate. I don't know why they keep doing that. I don't understand what that power is. It doesn't make any sense to me. I hate it when she does it. It looks silly. Anyway, I don't know why they just don't have him move backwards like everything else. Sorry, that's just
Yeah.
a random rant that I just wanted to put in there.
Macy freaking out goes back to check on Harry, and as we can see, Harry is a lot farther affected by the orb.
He's affected by the magic ball.
His eyes are starting to glow and glaze over all creepy like.
And he delivers some line that she's going to die or something. What was the
Yeah,
line?
yeah. He again, he's super fixated on his immortality and that Macy will die of old age eventually. The way that they set that up, though, I thought he was going to attack her because,
So did I. I thought for sure he was going to go for her or something.
yeah, but then he just went into this little monologue about how, again, he's worried that she's going to die of old age and he's going to stay the same. And then fortunately, she talks him down, convinces him to give her the orb, and she puts it in a little cloth. And then later on, they square it away in a little chest. So it's not really a monster of the week episode,
It's an
but
object of the week
yes, it's
episode.
it's very much a cursed object of the week. It's an artifact, whatever, but it functions a lot like a monster or a demon, but it's just an inanimate object. I would have really, really liked if they expanded a little bit more on the lore here. For example, if they said that there was some evil spirit or demon inside the orb, or if the orb actually belonged to someone and they were controlling it from afar, or if it was a piece of something bigger. They didn't even
That would have been really, really, really good if they had done that. That would have made total sense.
but they didn't. They never even, we never hear about it or see it again. They didn't even give it a proper name. The only reason that from this point on, I mean, we've just been calling it the orb, but in my mind, in my head canon, I've been calling it the Orb of Chaos because fortunately, despite all of that stuff that Harry went through, it did give him enough juice to decipher some things. And he found out that these beings that have been being released, they all come from some prison or tomb. And then later on, we find out it's called the Tomb of Chaos. So in my mind, I'm just calling it the Orb of Chaos. But either way, we never hear about it again. And it's just really disappointing. And that's why I said earlier in this episode that I was disappointed because there's no resolution. It's just she gets the orb back from Harry and they put it away and that's it.
Yeah.
And because he's a main character and has plot armor, he's not going to be as affected as Elliot. Elliot died. Elliot freaking died. But of course, because he's Harry, he's not going to die. And that's it. There's nothing else that happens. Might as well just say demon goes boom, and that's it.
Should we go into Maggie's subplot now?
Yeah, yeah.
So, this part of the episode, the Maggie part of the episode, we're dealing with Maggie and she's in her class. She's in some, I saw a sign on the door that said Maggie movement therapy. Is
Yeah,
that
yeah.
what she was doing?
Yeah, what Maggie's been up to this episode is she is organizing a dance movement group, I'm assuming as part of her research paper. So she organizes this group, but no one shows up. And then Jordan comes in and lets her know that her sign-up sheet is full of joke names. They're all pun names.
Yeah, like huge Janus.
Yeah. Or no, huge ass. Something like
Oh, was that one? Yeah.
Yeah. But Maggie assumes that it's Antonio that sabotaged her. So she goes and retaliates and uses her magic to change all of Antonio's posters because he's doing, for his research paper, he's doing a social justice study. And she changes the phone numbers on all the posters so that he's sabotaged as well.
I actually really like the spell she used. She made some kind of like potion, whatever it was, some powder. And she said, change it here, change it there, change the posters everywhere. And that was the spell she did to change all of the posters.
It
Sorry.
was a very OG type spell.
Yeah, it was. And I really appreciated that. I liked how it flowed. It wasn't just some generic Latin thing that we don't even know what it means. Side note, that spell is clearly personal gain.
Yeah.
But again, they didn't address it because I don't think that even personal gain even matters anymore at this point. Mag has used her power to get herself a job, the executive or assistant manager at Safe Space, which she didn't have the whatever for. She's done personal gain several times now, and the first time she did it was in season 1. And they made a point of saying, if you do this, you'll get personal gain consequences. And she ended up with that wart on her chin. Well, since then, she's done several spells for personal gain.
I have a theory. I think that the elders were the ones that were keeping them accountable. And when they did away with the elders and the charm ones literally became the leaders of the magical community, which was also dropped, I think that's why nothing ever happens to them when they do use their powers for magical gains, because they have no one to answer to, really.
Yeah, but the thing that I don't like about that is what's stopping them doing a spell to win like £1 million or something, or $1 million,
Nothing,
or
nothing. I'm sure if they try, they probably have Harry do some little monologue saying, "Oh no, that's not the right thing," and they probably listen to him. But the way that it's written, they don't have any accountability. They don't answer to anyone but themselves. I guess because they are good, they're mostly good people. We're just supposed to be fine with that and trust them. But there's no underlying threat for them losing control or becoming power hungry. Maybe that may come into play later, but it's not even a factor right now.
well, that was one of the things that I loved about the original show. The original Charms, they would do these spells for personal gain, and bad stuff, stupid stuff would happen to them. And it would like create comedic value. It would be entertaining. Like I remember there was that episode where Paige and Phoebe do that spell for Piper's birthday and they whip out Mr. Right. And Piper said, "So you whipped up a magical gigolo." She came out with this stuff that is so funny. And when Paige did it to bring forth Mr. Right, her and Phoebe, they have this argument over him, and she does this really funny, like regurgitating noise. It's like the lectures, the funny
Yeah,
stuff that we don't get to see, like when they do spells and things go wrong. Nothing like that happens on the reboot. It did in the
nothing.
first season, and that was what kind of made it entertaining, but we don't get that.
On this show, I really don't think there's anyone they answer to. Whereas on the original show, it was kind of the universal balance power at work. So if they did something that was personal gain, the universe would balance that out like immediately. Because I mean, and I do think that's how generally most people believe magic works in real life, that there's a balance, that if you do something bad, it's going to come back to you. That fundamental belief, that is what shaped how magic works on Charmed. Whereas on this show, if there was anything happening to them for personal gain early on, I think it must have been something deliberate by like the elders or something. That's what makes sense, because after the elders are gone, they don't answer to anyone anymore.
Right. I never
Um,
thought of it that way, but you're totally right on that. And I think that
but I
sort of
mean,
changed my perspective on the whole thing.
but I could be wrong. I mean, maybe for all we know, maybe the writers didn't think too deeply about it and they just dropped the personal gain element like they've dropped so many things. So explaining away, explaining away all that is giving them too much credit. No offense to the writers listening, if they're listening, but I don't think things were thought too deeply about it. So back to Maggie. So the whole Maggie versus Antonio thing comes to a head. She accuses him of sabotaging her, and then she finds out that he didn't sabotage her at all. It was the Sigma fraternity messing with psych students as a rush prank. So Maggie gets all up in her feelings and she's upset and guilty. So ultimately, what happens is that they get together, they talk it out, and they decide to be friends. And then we get to see Maggie have a premonition.
Yeah, she has a premonition and she sees she's in bed and Antonio's there and he looks like he's just come out the shower.
Yep.
So
I can appreciate that they're doing away with this petty rivalry thing, because for me, that was cringeworthy. The way she was acting in class and reacting to him talking over her and getting all upset and anxious. I get why they were trying to do that before, but I'm glad that she womaned up and talked about it directly and say, "Hey, you talk over me and I don't like it." And then he explains a little bit about himself, that he grew up with all these brothers or a big family and he had to be loud and boisterous to make up for it. So ultimately, they become friends. And I like that. It's an adult thing to do, and it shows a lot of growth on Maggie's part. And I have to refresh as we watch the rest of season 3, but I don't think there's any more drama about that, which I appreciate.
yeah.
And then we have a little subplot with Jordan.
Yeah, Jordan sees them talking and he just kind of walks out. And I sort of felt bad for Jordan because Jordan's clearly got a thing for Maggie.
I don't really care about Jordan too much. He has a little subplot where he works at a law firm and he's forced to defend a big company going after the little guy. And there's an employee that got injured, and he's exploiting a bunch of things to make the company win.
Which is pretty much what big businesses do anyway.
Yeah. The part where the employee that was, like the injured lady, the way she looked at him, I did like that moment because you can really see the pain and hurt in her eyes.
I didn't care about this storyline. It didn't make any impact on me whatsoever. I was like, okay, when's the next scene type thing? I can see what they were trying to do with it, but Jordan's not my favorite character. Well, I guess he does add something to the show because, and going back to Buffy, he kind of brings that, even though he has this curse, he brings back that
Human
normal
element.
human element to the show, which the show needs because it's so out there. It's so over the top and fantastical that they need something to bring it back down to earth. And that's what I think he provides out of everything. But, I
Yeah.
just didn't care for the storyline.
And then, of course, Jordan's here to stay because he's going to be in season 4. The one thing that Maggie said that made me roll my eyes was when she says she doesn't want a relationship with anyone because she wants to have a year of me. It's
Oh my God.
it's such a Gen Zer thing to say.
Yeah, this is my year. This
This
is
is
the
the
year
year
of
of
me.
me.
Let's get down to the big fight. I guess you could say the scene that kind of.
Yeah, that ties everything together. It's not really a vanquish scene, but it is a power of 3 moment.
So Maggie comes home and she sees something creepy walking about in the hallway or walking downstairs in the manor. And she gets her police baton, her self-defense stick, whatever you want to call it.
Her
Her
baton.
her baton, her alternative to her magic staff she had in season 1. She gets it out and this demon is in the house, and it's a female demon, and it walks towards her. Mel hears Maggie and she comes down the stairs or comes to see her, and that's when Mel and the demon kind of go at it.
Yeah, and then Macy comes home conveniently. I don't know, I just thought it was a little too convenient that Macy comes home at the same time. But they all get together at the same time and they're about to have a power of 3 vanquish moment. But then, as we mentioned earlier, Abby was sleeping over at the manor that night, and Mel sees Abby's ring on the demon's finger and realizes that the demon is Abby. She's essentially becoming this demon and attacking herself while she's sleeping. So they wake her up, they let her know what's going on, and Abby says that she and Jordan found a totem that held her demon powers when her
A
mom.
demon form.
Are you sure it was her demonic form? I thought it was demonic powers.
No, I think she said it was her demon form.
Oh, well, demonic powers or demonic form, it was something that her mom stripped from her when she was a little girl. And this is news to Mel that she has a sister, and she doesn't really elaborate too much other than that the sister wants nothing to do with Abby. That's basically the episode.
And what did you think of the scene where Mel and Abby fought? Because Mel came down the stairs and she shot ice and Abby shot fire.
I thought it's like what I said last episode, where,
About the power thing.
yeah, the powers don't really mean anything to me. I mean, I guess Mel uses ice now. At this point, I'm just unimpressed by the powers that they have because it's so inconsistent.
So she shot laser beams out of her eyes next week or something. You wouldn't be surprised about it.
No, but I won't be surprised. I mean, so she actually has ice powers?
No. So she doesn't have ice powers. What she has is her molecular powers. With her molecular powers, she can affect water, she can affect fire, she can heat things up, she can cool things down. I don't know how it works.
So where did the ice? So I forget, was there actual ice? Make it make sense.
No. So she came down the stairs and she shoots ice because she can turn anything to ice. She can make ice out of nowhere. I don't know why. Apparently she can make ice just appear. She can make fire appear, apparently. Can she make fire appear? Well, she can blow things up.
See, like even you don't know. It's so inconsistent.
I know.
And you actually do make a point to try to keep up with all the power stuff. See, I don't.
Mm,
There's like in the Charmed fan community, there is a lot of people that are obsessively track their powers and when they use it, how they use it, when it changes, all of that. I would lose my mind if I were that invested in the reboot because it's so freaking inconsistent.
I hate the fact that they've changed it so much from the first season, even though the first season they weren't very consistent. But they've done a complete 180 with Mel, and it makes no sense to me whatsoever. It's like time freeze, and now she's molecular, whatever the hell that is. And now she's icicles, whatever. That's how her powers first manifested. She turned what's his name? Apple Boy, Parker to ice. Remember? Season 3. Turned into ice when he
Well,
attacked Jordan.
season 2 was a fever dream, so I don't really remember.
Nightmare.
I'll just take your word on it.
Mm.
This episode, I think, was better paced. I think it was well balanced. It wasn't exactly the monster of the week episode I was hoping for, considering how they had the Chupa Alma and Oman in previous episodes. Now we have this orb, and then apparently that's the last of it because everything else happens off screen.
Mm.
What would you rate this episode?
5 out of 10. I just did not care for this episode at all. I was like, oh my God, here we go. Because I felt like the episodes before had been so, I don't want to say the two prior had been so sort of strong in their tone or whatever in the subject matter. Not to say that because they were Monster of the Week, but it was like they had something interesting going on. I just didn't care. I don't care about Abigail. I don't feel sorry for her. I don't care about that ball. I didn't care about Harry's backache and him falling over Macy and all this. I just didn't care. I was like, oh, okay. The only thing I liked about this episode was Maggie's spell, which I overlooked the first time I watched it, and the sort of showdown that they had with Abigail. And that was all I cared about.
Yeah, there are elements of it that I liked. I do appreciate the pacing more than anything, but the actual storytelling, the actual plot,
So what would you rate this episode out of 10?
like a 4.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. Yeah. I think I was a bit fairer. I mean, it's definitely on the lower scale of things. Definitely.
Yeah. And also the episode does move things forward too, so that
Mm.
helps.
We'll be back next week with another review.
We will be reviewing Charmed season 3, episode 7, Which Way Out.
Yeah, we will.
If there's any episodes from past seasons of the reboot or of the original Charmed, let us know in the comments. We will happily review anything you guys want us to review.
Thank you guys for listening, and we will see you again next week.
Bye.
Bye.